You know, it's funny sometimes what you can remember. It's not always the big cinematic moments. Sometimes it's just the little things. The way the rain sounded on the tin roof of the bus stop. A constant shh, like it was just telling you to keep your secrets. That's what 1983 felt like around SeaTac. A big, wet, gray secret. I was 19 at the time. My life was a cycle of cheap coffee, sore feet, and the smell of bacon grease that clung to my hair. Every night I drive home in my Pinto, a car the color of the rust and regret, and I think about the girls. The ones on the news, the Green River girls. They felt like distant cousins of a sort. Girls who worked late, girls who were trying to get by, girls like me. My Pinto died on a Tuesday, of course. It was a Tuesday. It died on the stretch of a road that was pitch black, sandwiched between the whispering woods and the distant roar of the highway. My hazards were blinking. I sat there, hands gripping the wheel, and I felt the kind of cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. It was the cold of absolute vulnerability. Every car that passed was a monster until it was gone. I was afraid. After what felt like an eternity, a beat-up pickup truck slowed down. I remember the make. It was a Ford, maybe. It was dark and covered in a layer of grime that Pacific Northwest cars just wear. The man inside rolled down the window. He looked like nothing. A mustache that looked like it was trying to escape his face, and a flannel shirt. He had the tired, blank look of every guy who came into the diner for a cup of coffee and a piece of pie. "Car trouble?" he asked. His voice was higher than I expected, kind of reedy. The relief was so powerful it made me want to cry. "Yeah, she's dead," I said, trying to laugh it off. "Well, you can't stay here," he said, and it sounded like simple, obvious kindness. "Hop in. I can take you somewhere." My mom's voice was a faint whisper in the back of my head, but the fear of the dark road was a roar. The choice was between a definite, creeping terror and a potential unknown one. I chose the unknown. I grabbed my purse and I ran through the rain, the drops feeling like icy needles. The cab of his truck was a mess. Not a scary mess, a normal person's mess. Fast food bags, a crumpled road map, some tools on the floor. It smelled like stale Winston's and that weird, sweet smell of old coffee spilled on the floor mat. He introduced himself as Gary. He was kind of chatty, honestly. He told me he painted trucks at Kenworth and complained about his shifts. It was also disarmingly normal. But then the vibe shifted. It was subtle. He started asking me questions, where I worked, where I lived. But his eyes, they would linger. He had this weirdly intense, unblinking stare. Like he wasn't just hearing my words, he was consuming them. "A pretty thing like you shouldn't be out so late," he said. And the way he said "pretty thing," it made my skin crawl. It wasn't a compliment. It felt like he was classifying a specimen. My whole body went on alert. I was still making small talk, but it was all automatic. Inside my brain was a frantic hamster on a wheel. Did I lock the door? Can I open it while the truck is moving? What's that on the floor? I saw a coil of rope near my feet, and my breath hitched. He missed my turn. I knew it the second that we passed the 7-Eleven. "My apartment was back there," I said, my voice tight. "Oh, I know a shortcut," he said smoothly. And he didn't even look at me. He just stared ahead into the darkness, and that's when I knew. You don't take a shortcut to a place you don't know. He turned down a gravel road and the world just disappeared. The trees crowded in, their wet branches scraping against the sides of the truck. It was like driving into a tunnel of black. My heart was a wild bird trapped in my ribs. He started talking about the Bible, his reedy voice quoting verses about sinners and whores. This was it. I was going to be one of those girls on the news, my picture, my name, another ghost haunting the Green River. I didn't have a plan, it was just pure animal instinct. "I'm going to be sick," I gasped, clutching my stomach. "It's the chili I ate. Please, I'm going to puke all over your truck." He got angry. I saw it in his face. The meek, bland mask dropped. And for a second, I saw something utterly monstrous. "Just hold on," he snapped. "I can't," I wailed. And I let out a gagging sound that I didn't even have to fake. The thought of what was about to happen was making me sick. The threat of vomit on his upholstery was more real to him than any terror. He slammed on his brakes. The truck hadn't even fully stopped when I threw the door open and launched myself out. I didn't care about my purse, my keys, nothing. I hit the muddy ground and just ran, scrambling up the embankment, thorns and twigs riding at my clothes. I heard him yelling, a string of furious, ugly words, but I didn't even look back. I ran until my lungs felt like they were on fire, until I burst out of the woods and onto the pavement again. I flagged down a car, a family in the station wagon who looked at me like they'd seen a ghost. Maybe they had. Years later, when they finally caught him, I saw his face on TV. Gary Ridgway. It wasn't a jolt. It was like a piece of ice sliding down my spine. The world went silent. It was him. The face of nothingness. The man who painted trucks. The man who knew a shortcut. I sank onto my couch and I just shook. It wasn't a headline. I was the story that didn't get written. The one who got away. And I still don't know why to this day. It wasn't a cold, rainy night. It was the opposite, which somehow made it worse. It was one of those suffocatingly hot Florida nights in the late 80s, the kind where the air is so thick with humidity, you feel like you're breathing water. I was 20 years old and my world had just imploded. A screaming match with my mom and stepdad had ended with me packing a duffel bag and storming out, vowing never to come back. My grand plan was to take a Greyhound to my cousin's place in Atlanta. Of course, grand plans made in a fit of rage rarely work out. I got to the bus station in Tampa just in time to see the tail lights of the 11:30 bus pulling away. The next one wasn't until 6 a.m. So there I was. Yeah, that sounds cliche, I get it, but so there I was, sitting on a hard plastic bench under the buzzing fluorescent lights, broke, heartbroken, and trying my best not to look as scared and as alone as I felt. The station was mostly empty. Just a few other lost souls scattered around. A man sat down on a bench across from me. He wasn't scary at first. He was big, yes. A large black man with powerful shoulders, probably in his late 40s. He had a friendly, gap-toothed smile, and there was a gold cap on one of his front teeth that glinted when he spoke. He looked like somebody's uncle. "Hey, you missed your bus, little sister?" he asked. His voice a low and gravelly rumble. I just nodded, wiping at my sweaty forehead with the back of my hand. "Happens to the best of us," he said, chuckling. "Where you headed?" "Atlanta," I mumbled. He clicked his tongue. "That's a long wait, a real long wait to be sitting in a place like this. Not safe for a young lady." He leaned forward, resting his big arms on his knees. "Tell you what, I'm driving up toward that way to see my brother. It's on the way. I can take you that far, get you to the station up there, but it'll be a lot closer than here." I should have said no. Every warning I'd ever heard screamed at me to say no. But I was tired and miserable, and the thought of just sitting in that depressing station for 7 more hours was unbearable. And his smile, it seemed so genuine. He looked harmless, like a big friendly bear. I don't have any money for gas, I said. He waved a big hand dismissively. Don't you worry about that. I ain't looking for money. Just helping a sister out. So I did it. I followed him out to the parking lot to his car. It was a big, beat-up American sedan, maybe a Lincoln. A dirty yellow color under the parking lot lights. The inside smelled like old cigarette smoke, something sweet like cheap air freshener. He was a talker, a big talker. As we got onto the interstate, he told me stories. He said he'd been a boxer, an ambulance driver, all sorts of things. He was charismatic, and I found myself relaxing, even laughing a little bit. He seemed to know just what to say to put me at ease. But about an hour into the drive, the tone changed. His questions got more personal. He asked if I had a boyfriend, if I was a good girl. His eyes kept flicking over to me, and the friendly uncle vibes was replaced by something else, something appraising and cold, something dark. You got pretty eyes, he said, his voice losing its friendly rumble, and a nice neck, long and slender. A jolt of pure ice went through me. It wasn't a compliment. The way he said it, it was like a butcher admiring a cut of meat. I shifted uncomfortably, my back pressed against the passenger door. We need to get some gas, he announced suddenly, and he pulled off the highway onto a dark, deserted exit. There was no gas station in sight, just a 2-lane road flanked by dense, dark swampland. The chorus of frogs and insects was deafening. Where's the gas station? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He just smiled, the gold tooth flashing. There's one up here a ways. Cheaper gas off the highway. He drove for another mile down the dark road, then slowed the car to a crawl. The friendly mask was gone. His face was hard, his eyes flat and dead. He reached over with one of his huge hands and laid it on my thigh. It felt as heavy as a cinder block. You and me, we're gonna have some fun, he murmured, his voice low and guttural. My entire body went rigid. I wasn't a person to him anymore. I was a thing. I looked at his hand on my leg, then at his face, and I saw a bottomless pit of violence there. This wasn't about a ride. This was about something else. This was about him owning my last breath. My hand, shaking uncontrollably, found the door handle. I didn't think, I just acted. I yanked the handle and I shoved the door open with all my might. I tumbled out of the slow-moving car and hit the gravel shoulder hard, scraping my hands and my knees. I scrambled to my feet and ran to the darkness of the trees and to the swamp. I could hear him slam on its brakes, the car skidding. I heard him yell, "Get back here." I just kept running, blindly, branches whipping my face. I plunged into knee-deep, murky water, not caring about the snakes or gators or anything else. The only monster I was running from was him. I hid behind a huge cypress tree, submerged in foul-smelling water, trying to control my ragged, panicked breathing. I saw his silhouette. His silhouette was against his car headlights as he got out and he stood on the road, looking into the darkness where I disappeared. This dude was a giant, terrifying shape. He yelled for me again then, after a moment that felt like a lifetime. He let out a string of curses, got back in his car, and peeled out down the road. I stayed in that water for over an hour, shaking, until I was sure he was gone. Years later, I saw his face on the news. Samuel Little. The drawings he made of his victims, the way he described their last moments. And I saw my own face in my mind's eye. The girl with the pretty eyes and the long, slender neck. The girl who almost ended up as just another one of his charcoal sketches. That was the scariest night of my life.